divinity, nature of divinity, but also about the characteristics, the specific features exhibited by divinity. And consciousness is one among the various attributes manifested by divinity. This is a unique, special approach to this subject, and we have nearly 20 speakers in the subsequent weeks to come. And to start with, we will have the exposition of divinity according to the Maharishi's hypothetical expressions about divinity. May I request Balachandran to start his deliberations. வாழ்க வளமுடன்.
May the whole world enjoy prosperity, happiness, and peace. May the whole world enjoy prosperity, happiness, and peace. May we all be blessed with good health, long life, prosperity, wisdom, and peace. Dear fellow travelers of consciousness, I thank Dr. Rabindranath for having given me this opportunity to address you. It's a great honor, and the entire team working with them for this great cause. They have taken a lot of trouble of organizing an earlier meeting, and then now they are going to have a series of talks so that what Maharishi has been talking about, which is totally new, both to the spirituality and to science, and how we can go ahead and have a concrete program with new hands. With the blessings of Maharishi, who has thought about it for more than 60 years, and divinity, I will try to share within my own limitations what Swamiji has said about divinity. And then followed by that, we'll have an interactive session. So with the pranams to everyone, we'll begin this program. Yes. About divinity, the whole human community for thousands of years have been having different concepts about it. And there have been wars, even world wars, and differences of opinion among people, differences between scientists and spiritualists and religions. And that is where Maharishi has come out with a very, very concrete definition of what is divinity. In 2002, we had a world conference on peace. And we had intellectuals across the world, spiritual leaders, scientists, all meeting together to how world peace is possible. So in that, Maharishi makes a very succinct statement. Now the time has come for intellectuals of the world to assume the responsibility of reforming the world in accordance with the understanding of real nature of God and universe. So Swamiji has taken a very bold step of defining what God is, defining what divinity is. And whenever Maharishi takes up a topic, the beauty is he will go to the very depth of it. In Tamil, he will say unmai. Unmai means go to the very root, ulmai. So he will go to the very depth of it, in fact, right from first principles, be it economics, be it science, be it philosophy, be it education, be it politics. And that is where he is able to have a holistic vision and a holistic response to the issues and holistic reply, holistic solutions. In this lecture, in this presentation, we are going to see what he says about divinity. And for that, he goes to the very beginning of how the concept of divinity came into human beings and what science has done about it. And then he comes out with a definition. So we will go for that. So he goes to the very early times of humanity. So he starts from the first man. We all came from animals that both science and spirituality talks about it. So we were from monkeys, the missing links were there. So we almost were like animals, leading a nomadic life, a group, a small tribe, killing some animals and living on that, whatever is available in nature. And then when that is not there, they they further go out. So this type of nomadic tribes was the beginning of humanity. After a long time, he gives a very beautiful explanation of all things. A very beautiful description. And then we settle down for agriculture. So he says how the first plant was discovered, how he was able to put the same seed and then it started growing like that. So after thousands and thousands of years, then the human being found out that we could also replicate nature. And so we knew about harvesting. So it is at that time which no animal was able to do so far. And the human beings first time cultivating something and waiting for the harvesting. And so he had to settle down. So that is how settlements began. And when we started living in groups, then some problems also came about. Well, of course, they had a chance for sharing the whole thing and they were able to settle down. They had a home to stay, families happily staying there. But along with that, came about. So somebody was working for a few months, and then at the time of harvest, maybe another nomadic tribe comes and takes it over. And so they needed to have political administration. So slowly, society, a civilization starts evolving. So political administration had to be there. Who will look after the law and order? As to who will get what and things like that. And then trading started. So they started storing things, and when they had stored, they would go ahead and barter system was there. No, money system was not there. So one tribe going to the other tribe and then barter system. So trading started. So political system and trading. And when the group started becoming like that, staying like that, so they needed what is called a virtuous way of life. That means how harmony can be built in the society. So we know what virtuous way of life, non-violence, I will not kill others, morality, duty, charity. These concepts were introduced. A legal system was there, a political administration was there, trading, how it should be fair, all those things started. So human beings started living in a totally different way from the rest of the humanity. So there were a lot of benefits, problems also were there. So when they found that, in spite of all the legals and police systems and all that, still a virtuous way of life was not being practiced. So then some great masters, so they thought about it. And they said, then they introduced the concept of God. So the divinity was started by great men. So they said that if you do something wrong, God is watching you, divinity is watching you. And depending on the community, they gave a shape, they gave a form, they created some stories, depending on the level of audience, the understanding of audience, and what was available in that particular place. So they introduced this concept of divinity for the first time. So they said that there is a God who's looking at you. So everything will be, so we know that in India we have this Chitragupta, isn't it? So he was noting down what all of you are doing, pluses and minuses. So the concept of virtue virtue as the concept, if you will be in heaven and then you will provide all the facilities of your life. All religions had it. In some of them, it's a day of judgment. In Hinduism, it was different. But they all had this concept of God, heaven, and hell. So carrot and stick policy was introduced apart from the political system. So three important people, leaders were there. One is the political leaders, the other is the economic leaders, and the religious leaders. So this is how the whole thing started. And one is worship of God, other is virtuous way of life. These two form the basis of all religions. The beauty of Maharishi is, while we look at the differences between one religion and other, or within religions also, we see the differences. Whereas Maharishi can see the unity in diversity. That was the greatness of Maharishi, that holistic approach. So he filtered and said all religions have got only two concepts. One is, and as far as virtuous way of living is concerned, all religions tell the same thing. Don't kill others, try to help others. So morality, duty, charity was common to all religions. There's no difference at all. But why religions were fighting? It is because the understanding of what divinity is. There is so much of fluctuation, so much of differences among people about the concept of God. And even today, it continues. So different religions, different subsects, castes, so many other things in the name of God. And a lot of infighting, and ultimately leading to, you can, world history, how religions have created great problems among society. And they also said there's a God sitting above and he created the universe. The creation theory also was started by them. That God, he out of this thing, he created the universe. So God is apart from that. So the concept of creation theory was generally the most popular thing among this. Maybe some philosophers talked about Advaita, but that was not for the common man. So you see Swamiji how beautifully brings out how the concept of divinity came about, right from the first man. And this continues. Okay, then what happened? Very interesting story. Then how God came into being in science. So it went on right up to the 15th century. So this was what was going on. At that time, science was at a very nascent stage. It was a religion who talked about even science. How natural things are happening was also under the influence of religious leaders. But we also know that it was Copernicus. The beauty is Copernicus was a Christian priest. And he, for the first time, so till then, Earth is the center of the universe. And so we are the most important beings. So this was the concept. And everything else, including the sun and moon, all of them were going around the earth. So this was the concept, and God was above that, and he created all these things. So there was no doubt at all about these things. But then Copernicus, as I told, I think is a Polish priest. So when he started studying it, of course, they say Aryabhatta, and they also found out about it. Anyway, we're not bothered about those things. We are bothered about the concept here. Copernicus, I think it was 1514. Yes, the year of 1514. So he declared, and you see, he was so afraid of the society that he wrote in anonymous this thing. He didn't say who's the author. And he gives this beautiful concept because he noticed that Jupiter had 4 moons, so it was not going around the Earth. So he came to the conclusion that there are things other than Earth which could be the centers. And then he also found out that yes, possibly everything is going around the sun. So for almost 100 years, it's only I think about 1600 or so, till then it was just lying down like that. And then Galileo, because the telescopes were discovered before him, and Kepler independently, a German priest. So he took the calculations of his student, and out of the calculations, he derived that it is the sun which is the center and everything else is going on around it. Of course, they thought it's going in circles because circle is a beautiful, I mean, it's a figure nice, not elliptical. At the same time, Galileo, so he, using the optical instrument, so he came to the conclusion that that's how that, Jupiter has 4 moons and all that. So he also came to the conclusion that sun is the center and not Earth. And Newton was a person, again, after another 70, 80 years. So the whole thing has taken 200 years for science to question what the religions have been saying. That was the control of the religion over the human beings. So almost at the end of the 17th century, 1687 or so, Newton comes out with that sun is the center. And then he started talking about gravitation. He also gave measurements. F is equal to m1, m2 by d square. Mathematically, he was able to derive. So he is considered the father of modern science, having a totally new way of looking at things and doing things. So from then on, for next 200, 300 years, we had fantastic progress in science. And the science became so popular. And then the scientific method, and the scientific method is you can have an hypothesis, but it becomes a law only when it can be proved. Hypothesis can be there, but it has to be proved either experimentally or deducting. So for God also, you could create a hypothesis, but unless you prove it, we will not accept it. So science had this objectivity in it, which earlier religions were not having. So while this was the strength of science, it also became a weakness. We'll come to that. See the story how beautifully Swamiji gives. While science was at its peak, technology was developing, and today we have mobiles. Even an illiterate person has got a mobile. See the amount of progress. About 300, 400 years, we could not even dreamt of. And so science became, in fact, it is told that one of the scientists in 1900, it's not whether it is true or not, a statement that has been which has been associated with him. I think Lord Kelvin, 1900. So he makes a statement in another 10, 15 years, science would have discovered everything. Maybe it's a question of instruments will be able to improve upon it, but whatever is to be found out, they can find it in another 20 years. So that was the height of science and the height of ego they had. Just like the religious leaders had the ego that they had all the knowledge, the scientists had it now. But then comes a bang to the scientists as well. It did not answer all the questions. As science went on advancing, there were 4 dimensions, which even Newton talks about. They were considered 4 independent entities: space, time, mass, and energy. They thought that these were absolute and unconnected. So that was the concept he had. But that was not answering many questions. And Einstein, almost the next great godfather in science, so he came to the conclusion that no, space is not empty, or space is not a non-entity. It has a role in gravity. And time is not fixed. So space-time are connected. And similarly, matter and energy, that famous equation. So these questions were bothering them. And latest, what's his name? The man who is handicapped and he cannot speak also, Stephen Hawking. Stephen Hawking is considered next to Einstein. He's supposed to be the topmost. So he and so many other scientists were looking about grand unification theory. Grand unification theory is there's a gravitation is a force at distance. Okay, between stars and all that, but at the smaller level, it is a weak nuclear, strong nuclear, and electromagnetic. So they thought that they could connect that all those three, and then of course gravitation. And then later, Stephen Hawking also wanted to talk about theory of everything. He writes a book on that, theory of everything. And Einstein also, while he reduced 4 into 2, he wanted to reduce it to 1. He was not able to do that. A generalized theory of science. So that the 2 also could not be done. And even in the 4 energies, he was not, about quantum theory, he was not very happy actually. Though he was a part of discovering it. So he saw gravitation and quantum, they appear to be not in concordance. So in his later life, he was working on that. Just like Shankara, in Advaita, he believed, he was a propounder of Advaita. But then, because of the limitations of the public, he had to talk about 6 samayams. Okay, 6 branches. So it seems at the very fag end of his life, I think in Kumbakonam, so he realizes that I've talked about Advaita, but I've ended up with 6 of them. I could not reduce it to 1. That is why Vethathiri Maharishi, he started the Brahmanyanam course there, it seems. So he made a statement sometime there. So here is Swamiji, who talks about Advaita, and at the same time, he is going to see how all this science blind ends, where it has stopped, how they can all be connected. A man with a great daring to look at science and to combine all the religions as well. So Mahayoga, harmony in everything, that was his goal. So world peace is just one of them. Each one of them is a gem. And Swamiji has that holistic outlook. And we are going to see that. So what questions were unanswered in science and what religions were fighting about. And so Maharishi gives out a unification theory where all religions will be unified and science and religion, science and spirituality can be together. And by his revolutionary concepts of what is divinity, which is a topic for today. See the amount of research he has done for all the 60 years he has been going on working on these things. So he does divinity, he defines it as gravity. But the concept is gravity is not between objects, but gravity is a property of space. I mean, people who got in spaced out. He goes and talks to American universities, he goes and talks to the scientists, he goes and talks to IITs in Delhi, talking to science people that your concept of gravity is wrong. A totally new concept about gravity. And he calls divinity as gravity. So all the moment we talk about divinity in religions, we think of a form, we think of so many supernatural powers and all that. So he brings it within the framework of science. Let me say this. And he comes out with a theory called self-transformation theory. So we've been talking about evolution theory, we're talking about creation theory, but now Swamiji says it is the divinity itself transforming into everything, not an evolution, not a creation. He says if God is complete, if it is everywhere, if he has to take something other than God and then make a creation out of that, that means God is not complete. If God is complete, it has to evolve from it itself, not even him or her. So he says creation theory is not okay, and even evolution theory. So he's coming, in fact, he was talking about evolution theory, but later he talks about self-transformation theory at the fag end of his life. And also he gives a new concept about magnetism. So magnetism is not between 2 objects. Magnetism is an inherent quality of divinity, is a quality of gravity. So he comes out with what is called God particle, or you call it as formative dust. He says Iraitugal. And the Iraitugal starts spinning. So divinity itself, gravity itself, the absolute space itself is magnetic. He says it's a mega net from which everything, your intranet, internet, all those things are coming out. So this bold outlook about divinity and talking in such a science language, which blows the mind of both religious leaders and scientists. And this was This has been his latest, I mean, he wanted to bring this. And that's why he took the trouble of going to United States, to other, Japan. He wanted to bring this to the notice of the intellectuals. And that is why in the 2002 conference, he talks about scientists or intellectuals will have to seriously look at what divinity is and what the universe is and how we all came about. That we're all coming from one source. We're all brothers and sisters. It is because of that only world peace will come. So for him, divinity, world peace, economics, all are falling into peace. It is this holistic outlook all of us should imbibe. So, and then he says, in fact, that one power, nature, has not created the universe out of anything external to itself. The supreme power itself. And he gives the dimensions of that: plenum, force, consciousness, and time. So with those four dimensions, it has transformed into universe. So everything you see is divinity transformed. It is just a journey from divinity up to that point. That beautiful song on flower, Malare, Malare, that flower tells him that I am nothing but the God transformed into me. And same is with you. So you are divine, understand that. If only you remove your animal imprints, there is no difference between you and divinity. So is everything. So the total outlook, the divinity is somewhere sitting above, goes for a 6. Everything you see is divine. It is divinity personified. And we are also that. When human being raises the consciousness to that level, oh, the word consciousness is coming, so we'll come to that also. So he defines what is God, what is nature, as absolute space. It's an ever, see the adjectives he talks about: everlasting. Just a minute, let me see, 5:36. Okay, I got 9 more minutes. Absolute space is everlasting. Singular, this is the only energy. Singular, almighty, it is the mightiest because it is able to float the entire universe just like a magician. Almighty, all penetrative. It is so penetrative that we are not able to see that. Permeable, thoroughly permeable. So it allows everything to go in and it can penetrate everything. Highly transparent. It is because of that air is transparent. That is why we're not able to see air. Whereas solid objects we are able to see because it is not transparent. So because it is super transparent, we are seeing it and we say it is not there. Bharatiyar again brings out a beautiful statement. You are seeing it and then you are saying it is not there. Swamiji says, Mature Pagargendra, Poi Solron அப்படிங்கிறார். But in his own nice way. So we are saying God is not there, you are seeing it. You are not understanding it. So why? Because our consciousness is at a material level of consciousness with the 5 senses. But we can go to deeper levels of consciousness. We can become one with that consciousness. Okay. Highly transparent, imperceptible, dark fluid matter. It can flow through anything. That's why it's called fluid, and it's a matter. This is the only matter. All the other things are incidents. They keep changing. So, அதுதான் மெய்ப்பொருள். எல்லாம் மீதெல்லாம் பொய்ப்பொருள் அப்படிங்கிறாங்க. And then he talks about its qualities. It is characterized by quivering. He introduces this concept of quivering. Originally, he was saying it's static, but out of static, how all those dynamic things can come. So he modifies his theory a bit. So he says there must be a quivering nature, kinematic quivering, that is of its own. The another quality of space, kinematic quivering, self-compressive. That is another criteria, another quality, that it is self-compressive and quivering. And because of these two only, it is able to produce so many things or transform into so many things, not even produce. Surrounding pressure, which results in automatic repulsion in its intensification and emerges as formative dust, otherwise known as Paramanu and ether. Science at some point of time believed in ether, and then it says ether is not there, but now Swamiji introduces the concept of ether again. So this is the nature of unified force. So he talks about that one force, unified force he's giving, which scientists are still looking for. The source of all forces, with 4 indivisible qualities, which he mentioned: plenum, force, consciousness, and time. So that is divinity. There is nothing other than God out of which everything is, even if it's just manifesting. And then he gives a beautiful definition of consciousness. It is the order of function in everything, everywhere. Nobody has given such a beautiful definition about consciousness. And of course, there will be other speakers later who will go deeper into consciousness that has got different levels of consciousness. One is total consciousness, out of which everything is coming out. And as it starts coming out, the first is first level of consciousness, where pattern, precision, regularity are the three characteristics. Then when it comes to a living being, in addition to that, we have cognition, experience, discrimination. And then at the human level, it can even look at that consciousness, try to understand what is the consciousness within me. And as you evolve, as the sixth sense evolves, you can become one with the total consciousness, which is the very purpose of human life. That's how the journey of consciousness completes in human life. So we are all proud owners of that consciousness. If human beings are told that you are divine and you can reach that, then their attraction to all smaller things will vanish. Give up. When somebody will give up, when you give something better than this, automatically, a child, if you want to take the mobile from its hand, for that chocolate, so I will give you chocolate, then you will give the mobile. Yes, for that chocolate is more important. So it will give up this. So if we come to know that there is a greater pleasure, which we call it as ecstasy, we are oscillating between pain and pleasure, but peace and ecstasy is possible. Then automatically we will not give pain to self or others. We will try to give pleasure to others. And we become ambassadors of peace. And that is exactly what Swamiji wants the entire humanity. So, if consciousness, unfortunately, today's science does not talk about consciousness. It talks about force. At what rate the sun is moving, what rate Earth is moving. It talks about the force, but it does not talk about there's a consciousness along with force. After all, the whole universe is operating so beautifully, there must be a consciousness operating. There's an intelligence which is operating. If everyone in Chennai, if they are stopping at the red signal and leaving only at the green signal, then we will say we're very conscious beings. Today we are not. Okay, so if we have to be treated properly, if we have to follow the rules, we have to tell one lie, that there's a GPS looking at you. That is what God was. That story could be wrong. Even today, if we are told GPS is looking at every signal, then you will find that people will start behaving. So this concept of God came about as GPS. But now we don't believe in that because man's conscious. Now we have to give a scientific explanation to that. That whatever you do, the result is coming as manifestation of divinity. So that is consciousness. So when science starts incorporating this consciousness along with force, gravity, and other forms of energy, then science is complete. Religion also gets complete. And there is a unanimity. So science and religions are not opposite. Anything material deals with science. Basic to that is spirituality, that's all. It's just that the level is different, that's all. So in this way, and further, when science understands what is consciousness, today's science with all its power is very destructive also. Nuclear weapons, wars. If science understands that consciousness, then science will not be misused. Science will be used for only creative things. So you see how beautifully Swamiji gives a complete history of what is divinity from the actual perspective. And then when science started coming, there was a dichotomy between science and spirituality, which is only artificial. So it is this we have to take it to the scientists. It is this we have to take it to the religious people. It is this we have to take it to the political administration and bring harmony everywhere. So this result of understanding consciousness will result in love and compassion, which will become natural. That is a natural quality of divinity. So love and compassion will become natural. You don't have to tell them that there's a hell or heaven. You don't have to say that. Its expression in inanimate and animate will remove all the gaps in the field, and peace and prosperity will come. Yes. So with this temple of consciousness is to teach this. That is how, as Vivekananda foretold, that in South India, one temple of consciousness will come where there is no idols. Consciousness will be the God there. So we are all very lucky that Swamiji's concepts, we have tried to imbibe it. We have to go a long way, but at least that we have got it. Let us absorb it. Let us become divine and also take this beautiful fragrance everywhere. I think that is Guru Dakshina Swamiji would like to have. May the whole world enjoy prosperity, happiness, and peace. Thank you for this opportunity. Be blessed by the divine. Or have a long day.
Be blessed by the divine. Thank you, Professor, for enlightening us. Rangaswamy here from Oslo. Congrats for starting in a great journey of consciousness with your guidance on divinity, and you have made us travel through this journey in historic times to today's times in the modern world, and how Maharishi has simplified these philosophies